Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My respected sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's very difficult for me to see the clock here, so it's likely that this may drag several hours. MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much. Apparently we welcome the sisters. Apparently the last MOT session we had, not for the car but for Salah, was something that people found very helpful and informative, and hence there was the request to switch the majlis for tonight, which was supposed to be the culmination of at least some of the features of the day of Qiyamah, to this more interactive, as this will be my last session before the holy month of Muharram, inshaAllah. And therefore, I wanted to focus on perhaps something that we do on a regular basis, and that's, of course, the recipe for collecting and practicing common errors and mistakes. When it comes to Ghusl and specifically Wudhu, you'll find that many people often perhaps haven't checked it for a few years, and therefore they pick up certain ideas or practices which tonight, inshallah, this evening, we'd like to clarify, but also to answer any questions that you may have. So this is definitely interactive. We'd like to have as many of the mu'mineen and mu'minat take part. As I said for the Salah one, in case you went there for the Salah workshop, in case you feel that you have, for example, performed the Ghusl or the Wudhu incorrectly all your life, first of all, don't have a panic attack, or more worryingly, a heart attack. But, you know, inshallah, there is a remedy and a way to look at each and everything. And it's better now, knowing about these rulings now than not. The other thing is, I also explained back a few months ago when we did this, and I think just for the sake of those who weren't there, for those who have performed something wrong, the way we know that they must do it again, repeat all their prayers and all their ibadah again, is on the basis of whether it's taqsir or qusur. And I'll explain what this means. Remember, let me ask, does anybody remember the two types of ignorance in fiqh and Islamic jurisprudence, and the difference between them, and one that you have to repeat and one you don't have to repeat? And I know I can remember, my memory is not great, but some faces, certainly from the brothers, I know were there at the Salah MOT. Perhaps they were thinking about the literal car MOT and weren't focusing, but I'm hoping that people are able to tell me. It was a bit of a difficult word to remember, but any ideas? Or at least explain the difference? Yes, mashallah. Ayub, what's the other one? Any ideas? So one was culpable ignorance, and the other one? Very simple. Yes? Yeah, but what's in English? No, not Jan Murakkab, that's something else. Culpable, taqsir and qusur. There was culpable. Any of the ladies, sisters, remember? Usually you're better in memorizing things. Is that now not even allowed to be said in this very sensitive world of rules by feminism? Okay, it's culpable and inculpable. That's all it is. That's all it is. So this is with regards to people who, for example, all their lives were taught something, madrasa, parents, and now they're being told something else. And they've practiced all their lives in that way. So it's not really their fault in the sense that they've tried their best. But there are others who are careless, didn't read, didn't study, didn't take part in any initiative, or they knew the ruling and forgot. This last category is where they will have to repeat their prayers and their wudu and ghusl, etc. So here you'll be able to kind of make a differentiation. Now, in about 8 places in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I love certain human beings. And He actually categorizes certain individuals and says, Inna Allah yuhibbu. So, for example, he says, Inna Allah yuhibbul muhsinin. Inna Allah yuhibbu tawabin. Allah loves the virtuous. Allah loves those who return to Him in penitence. One of the category of people whom Allah loves, Inna Allah yuhibbu tawabina wa yuhibbul mutatahhirin. Allah loves those who purify themselves. Hence, the whole discussion regarding ghusl and wudhu sometimes could be deemed to be a burden or something I've got to do, right? You think with yourself, ghusl, a burden, wudhu, I have to do wudhu. Whereas it's something that Rabbul Alameen, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala actually loves. So you're taking part in a process that brings about the love of the Almighty. So if you change that mindset, perhaps the way we look at these acts of worship will indeed differ. In Arabic, tahara means nadhafa, means cleansiness. So you can then begin to understand that the subject of tahara within Islamic Sharia law jurisprudence is about purity, it's about cleansiness, it's about being in that state which makes us ready to speak to Allah. Makes us ready to have that conversation in the structured way. Of course, we can have a conversation with Allah at any time. But when it comes to salah or other acts of ibadah that require wudu or ghusl, such as, not really. Oh, reading Quran, you need wudu or not? Well, I just answered. Completely, no? Touching the verses only. So reading, no problem. Touching is where you'd require wudu, and if you needed to, ghusl, that is wajib. What else? There is one important act of worship that you cannot do without wudu. No, we said salah, I know. It's not a madrasa class. So which other act of worship? Hajj? Someone say Hajj? Any ideas? Tawaf. Tawaf you cannot do without being in the state of purity from anything. For example, janaba or hayd requires ghusl, and then you need to be in wudu as well. Yes? So, on that basis, what we're going to discuss in the next 40 minutes that we have is not how to perform these acts of devotion, but common errors and mistakes. Because the hope is that, alhamdulillah, we are able to perform wudu, as inshallah I'm sure the vast majority, if not each and every one of us is. But errors that we've picked up and throughout our lives maybe have not paid attention to. So starting with ghusl, we're just going to have a look at some of the common mistakes that people have regarding ghusl, and then inshallah we'll move on towards wudu. With ghusl, as we know, there are two types. There is the immersive, which is rarely performed by people, but more so the sequential, the tartibi. So we're talking about the sequential type of ghusl, not the irtimasi, the immersive. In the sequential type, a common mistake that happens is that people, when they want to do the ghusl, they think the first thing I have to do is ghusl. And they forget that any part in their body that is najis must be cleaned first, must be made tahir first. So some people say, but surely the first time I go into that bath or shower should be for the purpose of ghusl. No. You can spend however long you want. The moment you decide that you want to do the ghusl, that's when the ghusl can begin, with a caveat to it, which I'll come to it in a minute. But it doesn't mean that the first thing that you have to do is ghusl. So a common mistake is people forget, for example, an area in the body that is what? That is najis. And hence it becomes a problem. Number one. Number two, according to the ruling of a number of maraja, and this evening I'm going to focus mainly on Ayatollah Sistani, Hafidhullah, but I'll mention Ayatollah Khoi and perhaps one or two other maraja, but apologies because otherwise it will take hours and hours. And often when I produce these 1-minute clips, people get a bit touchy. Why are you only presenting Ayatollah Sistani and not many other maraja? Because then it becomes difficult to stick to 1 minute. And if you have a problem with 1 minute, then speak to the makers of Instagram. and TikTok. So we are limited by time. So hence we'll focus on because as of course the majority, in this community at least, are the followers of His Eminence Sayyid Sistani, Hafidhahullah, but there's no problem if you follow any other maraja. His stipulation is that when you're about to start the ghusl, which is wajib, such as, for example, janaba or hayd or istihada, what you've got to do is you've got to distinguish between what you were doing before and what you're about to do. Meaning what? You either step out from the shower, or you switch off the water, or you push the water away from you, based on obligatory precaution. When I say based on obligatory precaution, that means it's not a fatwa. Yes, you all know the difference. It's not a fatwa, but it should be followed anyway. What does that mean? I am having a shower and I want to do the niyyat of ghusl janaba. I can't do the niyyat. I'm starting ghusl janaba qurbatan Allah ta'ala in my mind. Doesn't have to be said. And the water is running on my body. That can't happen. What I've got to do is either step out for a second or two and then make the niyyah and then commence with the washing of the head. Yes? Another mistake that happens is that people know this is okay, but they don't know that His Eminence Sayyid Sistani also has that you've got to do the same thing when it comes to washing the body after the head. Is that something people knew? One person is nodding and the others are already shaken. So, what is this? This means, the tartibi means you wash the head and then what? Yes, you move. So what do you wash after the head? Right. Everyone's happy with that? You can wash anything?
The left side, you can do the left side first, then the right.
Subhanallah. Which marja says that? Any of the brothers and sisters agree? No, everybody is, confirming that has to be the right. Yes? Yes? Everyone's, huh? Oh, there are now two opinions. There is mustahab and you don't need to. You know, the Quran says the majority of the people are usually wrong. And it's the case this time as well, because His Eminence Ayatollah Sistani says it is not wajib to wash the right. You can wash any part of the body after the head. And it's mustahab to do the right and then the left. However, Sayyid Khouyi has the same opinion, but some other maraja, like Sayyid Ali Khamenei and a number of other maraja, say no, it's wajib based on obligatory precaution to wash the right first. But Sayyid Sistani says no. So after the head, you can wash the left. You can start with the feet, whatever. Any part is okay. Okay, so after the head, you need to also step out, move the shower, do something that makes it a separate transition. Yes, that's another common mistake. Now, areas in ghusl that are forgotten, another error, and that is what? Usually, sometimes because people are either in a hurry or perhaps they've done this a lot, one of the things that they forget is the neck. Because perhaps they've got their neck down and they're washing and for example, they don't make sure that's under or here in this area, it's washed before the body. Now, what happens if you're washing the head, as we know that's the first part, and water falls on your body? Because once I had a question that somebody said to me, you know, I don't know how I do ghusl every time. I said, why? He said, because I put my head in first. To make sure it's only my head. I don't want any drop of water to go in my body first. Of course, there's no problem there because the intention is not to wash the body. If the water goes in your body, there's no issue there at all. Another common mistake is the idea that people, unfortunately, they wash part of the head and then they move on to the body, then they go back to the head. That's another error in ghusl that's wajib. Meaning what? Meaning that when it comes to ghusl tartibi, the head completely needs to be washed, yes? And the difference between wudu and ghusl is that in wudu, you need to make sure that the water reaches the parts where either the washing or the wiping takes place. In ghusl, you need to just make sure that it runs over it. So it's not as stringent as in wudu. So, what is the ruling when it comes to people who have long hair in ghusl? What's the ruling for that? Sisters, you have to do? What the? Yeah? And you don't need to wash the hair? Brothers? No idea? Go to Hajj every year. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So the ruling for, I mean, this applies to some brothers as well who have long hair, but I know it's more applicable to ladies, that the area that must be covered is the scalp area, or, the actual head, not the hair. So the hair, you can just allow the water to run over it or whatever. There's no obligation to make sure that it kind of covers every aspect of the hair that comes down, but rather it's the scalp that is essential. Now, the other mistake that people sometimes do in this regard is forgetting under the armpits and forgetting under the feet. Now, the problem with under the feet is that you are already standing, so you think that you've covered it. And chances are you'd have, but it's best out of precaution to raise your feet and to make the water run under the feet as well, in case that it hasn't, because you don't know. Maybe you've rushed it and the under the feet remains dry. Okay? There are a number of interesting situations here that I'd like to bring your attention towards, because it's, subject to potentially people experiencing. That is one, if you finish the ghusl, and we know that when it comes to ghusl, every ghusl that's wajib, it covers the wudu. So you don't need to perform wudu. Okay? There's a misconception out there, somebody once told me, if I don't have a ghusl that's wajib, so I'm not in the state of janaba or hayd or nifas or istihada or ghusl mayyit or anything like this, and I go and do ghusl mustahab, just I want to ghusl mustahab qurbatan ila Allah, just like that, that doesn't cover wudu. Yes? So there are 25 specific ghusls that cover wudu that are mustahab. 25. If you want to know which ones they are, check a video that I have done. Yes? So I'm not going to go through them now, but they are there. It says 25 mustahab ghusuls, recommended ghusuls that cover wudu. Okay? That's fine. A lot of them are in the month of Dhul Hijjah, by the way. Some are in the month of Ramadan. Some are throughout the year. Okay. An error here that sometimes we have to talk about is the idea that once you finish your ghusl and now you think that you're in a state of wudu and you are about to pray and you essentially lose your wudu, or you lose your ghusl, you're not in wudu, as in you haven't done wudu, but you pass wind, for example, or you go to the toilet. What's the ruling there? Do you have to do the ghusl again? Okay, so I've covered a lot of these in the clips. Yeah, there is no obligation to repeat the ghusl, of course, but the wudu is lost. That's all that it is. Okay? A bit more difficult is the idea that when you finish ghusl, you find something which is an impediment. Has happened, no? You find something in your body and you're thinking, okay, what am I supposed to do now? I've just finished ghusl. I can see a pen mark. The pen can be erased. In other words, it's not embedded into the skin. So now what am I supposed to do? Any ideas? Yes. Absolutely right. But the question next that I'm going to ask you is, what's the issue? What are you going to do? So the answer, one part of the answer is yes. If you know definitely that it was there before you did ghusl, then what do? Then you'll have to repeat the ghusl. And the wudu and the salah that you, or not the wudu, but the salah that you performed. For example, you finished the ghusl, you did the salah, then you realized, oh, this was there before the ghusl. So you have to repeat the ghusl and the salah. Okay? Now, imagine though that you don't, that you didn't know when it was. What do you do then? Huh? Yes. Then you can proceed. Okay. You're absolutely right. If you don't know, you can proceed. In the first instance, there is a slight explanation that's required. If you knew that there was a pen mark or whatever, an impediment, you don't have to repeat the ghusl. But it's okay if you want to. If you haven't lost the wudu, you're still in wudu, you can just remove this and wash it, and that's fine. But if you've lost the wudu, then you need to repeat the ghusl. Is that clear? Yeah, just something. Yeah. So you finished the ghusl, you did your namaz, then you're thinking this is a pen mark. You know for sure this pen mark was there before the ghusl, right? If you're still in wudu, then you just wash the pen mark and that's fine. No ghusl. But if you've lost your wudu, then you need to repeat the ghusl and the namaz. Yeah? And this, by the way, is the answer to many people. There's so many masail like this, that everything makes sense. We have the advocates of everythingmakesense.com in the Shia community. Sorry? They're same, nail polish, anything. People come forward and say everything in fiqh makes sense. I ask you, how does this make sense? Explain it logically.
I've heard if it's the left-hand side, you can just wash the left. If it's the right-hand side, you have to repeat the ghusl to the right and the left straight after.
No.
That's what it says in this time.
I haven't come across this.
If it's on the left-hand side, because that's the last side you do,
Yeah.
wash that area. But if it was the right-hand side, you have to...
We can check that, but I haven't come across that because obviously the left and right, he doesn't differentiate which side you do first.
He said if it's the head and neck, then you repeat the head and neck and the whole body.
Yes.
On the body, you just repeat the body again.
Yes.
But if it's on the left-hand side example, then you just do the left-hand side.
We can check that. Just going back to the point that we mentioned, that the idea that people sometimes obviously like to put some rationality behind it, just bear in mind this is some example of so many other rulings that do not necessarily bring forth an idea that there is some kind of reasoning. Allah knows best. And yes, there could be, but we don't actually know it. Okay? Now, just one or two other pointers regarding this, and that is if somebody is not able to do ghusl themselves, when they are a bit older, or they're sick, or anything like that, it is permissible for somebody to help them to perform the ghusl, but both of these individuals must make the niyyah of the ghusl. Okay? So the individual helping the person, sometimes for the elderly we help them perform the ghusl, right? That person needs to make the niyyah, and the other person also doing the ghusl needs to make the niyyah as well. Okay? If you can't find somebody to do the ghusl and you're not able to do the ghusl yourself, then what's the solution? Yes, tayammum is the answer. Okay? There are very few other, obviously the idea of not using, mixed water with something else. Swimming pools. That somebody once asked me this question. Swimming pools. Are we allowed to do immersive ghusl in swimming pools? No? Why not? Sorry? Why you can? Yeah. Is the water Pure or added?
So long as part, I mean, all together,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have any taste or the color is not that's fine.
What about the smell?
The smell doesn't matter, I think.
Okay. Ladies? Huh?
It's good if you all put together.
It's kur, yes, yes, yes. Even if it's not kur, you can do immersive in it. You know, you can do immersive as long as you, by the way, if you want to do this immersive irtimasi, you have to cover your entire body at the same time in water. So you can't just have your body and your head out, then your head in and your body out. Does that make sense? Has to be your entire body at the same time, even for a few seconds. The issue with swimming pools is a bit of a difficult one. Why? Because it seems that the percentage of chlorine that they add differs between different swimming pools. Sometimes even the water may look slightly different in some places. The smell is not a problem, but it's better out of precaution to avoid doing ghusl in swimming pools, just simply because of this issue. Because we're not entirely sure about the constitution, you know, the whole idea of the water, what is it made out of, okay? Any questions on the ghusl so that we can, because we only have half an hour left. Any issues or, yes?
In regards to wajib ghusl, is it like, so if you do the wudu afterwards, is that like forbidden or is it?
It's a good question. For ghusl janaba, it's haram. It's not permissible to do wudu afterwards. Ghusl janaba, ladies and gents. That means you can't just say, you know, I've just had ghusl. It's nurun ala nur, light upon light, because wudu usually is considered like that, right? And people think, it's okay, I'm in wudu, I'll just do wudu again. For ghusl janaba, Ayatollah Sistani has, it's not permissible to do wudu afterwards, unless obviously you've lost the wudu. You've gone toilet, whatever. Yes? But if you're still, everything's intact, you must never do the wudu afterwards.
So what happens if you have done it in the past?
Okay, did you know? No, even it doesn't invalidate anything. It's just if you knew and you did it, then it's a sin. If you didn't know, there's no problem. Yeah? Any other questions on ghusl? Any other issues? Seems to be straightforward. Yes? Yes. Why do you need to? It doesn't take long. Huh? Put an alarm or something. It's difficult. This idea of referring to another marja in this regard is difficult because I can't tell you if you can or you can't. You need to refer to an expert, a mujtahid, who can tell you that, for example, Ayatollah X is as knowledgeable or more knowledgeable in this area than, for example, your marja al-taqleed, if it was, for example, Ayatollah Sistani, in this case it is. So my advice is to make it a habit and to remind yourself, and it should be okay. It's not difficult to remember.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Does ghusl al-Jum'ah requires wudu afterwards?
No, Ghusl Jum'ah covers wudu. And by the way, you can also watch a clip as well of mine. Ghusl Jum'ah can be done up until Saturday. Did you know that? Yeah, you can do it as far as the qada. You do it with the intention of, you know, qada of Ghusl Jum'ah. So that's in accordance with Ayatollah Sistani. But yes, even then, till Saturday, it covers wudu as well. But if you do it, the idea of ada, meaning you do it just before or during the day on the day of Friday, then it covers wudu as well. Okay? Now, I'm going to quickly move on to wudu because that's going to have more interesting discussions, and usually it's taken more than half an hour in the past, so we can crack on and try and see as much, we can cover as much as possible. I'm going to focus only, of course, on mistakes once again. Perhaps the most common mistake in wudu that people do as a result of their eagerness to do it quickly. There are people out there who are perhaps world record holders for the quickest wudu that exists in the history of mankind. But at the same time, perhaps we don't appreciate the importance of it, the beauty of it, the impact it has on ourselves. Now, of course, wudu has 2 washes and 2 wipes. Yes, you agree? 2 washes and 2 wipes. The first wash is of the face. The common mistake that people do, and it is a fatwa of Ayatollah Khou'i and ihtiyat wujubi of Ayatollah Sistani. I'll explain what does that mean. So I'm about to come and wash my face. Of course, I have to wash my face where normally the hair stops up until the chin, and the length is usually between my thumb and my middle finger, so like this. Unfortunately, what people sometimes do is they start doing this. What was wrong there? Sorry? You have to imagine I have water in my hands. I can't really do it, otherwise there'll be... So I do imagine I have water in my hands.
So you washed from that part down, but then you also decide to wipe the right and left hand side.
Is that a problem to wipe the right hand side? Oh, so you're saying I must not wipe, I must wash. No, that's not the problem. I'll come. Let me just practice equality. Yes, exactly that. So that is the problem. Sayyid Sistani Ihtiyat Wujubi says, if you start halfway through the face, then you go up, your wudu is batil. Now, is that clear? Please, everyone understand. Because sometimes it has to start at the top to bottom. What do I do if I started in the middle? And then I'm like, oh no. What's the option?
You can make the intention after you've done that. So then start from the top. But the intention is made after the water's been put on the face.
You've already done the intention of wudu.
So like you put the water, if you start in the middle,
Yes.
you can then make the intention after that and then begin from the top.
So you mean do another intention?
Yeah. I
You're
guess.
hesitant.
If the intention wasn't, yeah.
But because you've come to do wudu, the intention is there, you've started, and now you're thinking, what am I supposed to do? I've already started. Simple. You just start again. But starting again requires a new intention. So you say, I am now invalidating this wudu. I am starting again. Niyyah is I'm about to start the wudu again, and this time you start at the top, making your way downwards. Is that clear? Does the face have to be dry? Let's do a poll here, just to kind of stretch your hands. How many believe the face has to be dry? How many believe the face doesn't have to be dry? And there are a lot of people who don't believe anything. So what's going on? Are you afraid? Either has to be dry or doesn't have to be dry. One of them. They're afraid of the answer. Subhanallah, doesn't matter. Let's all relax. Why are we stressing ourselves? It's dry or not dry? Just let's, yes. Okay, the answer is it doesn't have to be dry. It can be wet when it comes to the face. So, the only parts of the body that have to be dry in wudu are which parts? The head and the feet. Can the head and the feet be a little bit wet? Yes. Yeah, so it needs the water from the wudu, it needs to be greater than the water existing on the head, especially after coming out from a shower, or if there's raining and then you come home and you think there's a little bit of wetness. That's fine as long as the wetness from the wiping of the head and the feet is greater than the existing wetness on the body. But the face and the arms can be wet, no problem. Hence, what we do is usually mustahab to wash the face. You don't do that. Those who said it has to be dry, or perhaps you do and then you dry your face. You don't need to. Yes, it's mustahab to cleanse the face. I'm not going to touch on mustahabat, gargling, and cleaning the nose, and so on and so forth. Okay, so please bear with that. Now, the second error that I'm going to describe needs attention. So I know you've been at work today. It's hard. I'm going to try and make it. But this is perhaps the second most common error and something that is hard for people to understand. And that is the number of times you're allowed to wash the face or the arms. Yes? What does it mean that the ulama and the fuqaha, Sayyid Sistani, others say, you're allowed to wash once and it's mustahab to do twice? What does that mean? Ah, excellent. Gonna have to ban you from answering because you're answering all the questions. Right. So the answer is, as Ayub said, the answer is washing once means you cover the entire area. Even if you take water 10 times and you have the intention that this is the first time. So please understand, there's the intention in your mind and the covering of the area constitutes the first washing. That is wajib. Yes? So if, for example, I put water once, twice, and I'm still not covered the entire area, that still constitutes the first wash. Okay? The second wash is when I am confident that the entire face has been covered, what needs to be covered, and now I make the intention, I'm washing the second time. Is that clear? Yeah? Now, can we do wudu with a spray bottle? Subhanallah, ladies, all of them saying yes, brothers, no one saying anything. Because they clearly haven't ever, because the challenges of wudu for ladies are much greater than for men. Do you agree? Because you're out there sometimes, not only shopping, other things. And you're not in the position, for example, to find somewhere to take off hijab, and sometimes you have a spray bottle. But here's the thing. Spray bottles is allowed provided you cover the entire area. And you need to start at the top. Okay, so not here and then you do this and this. This is not, foundation you're putting on. It's you start at the top and you make your way down. Okay, so the second washing is mustahab. The third is haram. Now here, there's a distinction between haram and batil. Haram means you got a sin. You get a sin. Many of the maraja say it's haram, meaning you have introduced something which should not be introduced. So be careful in this particular regard, okay, as far as the washing of the face is concerned. Another mistake that happens, everybody's with me so far, yeah? The other mistake that often happens when washing the face, especially in the morning, is we leave certain residues, what's it called, the yellow stuff, crust, sleeping crust? It sounds like a sandwich or something. Okay, that is something that is often forgotten, so it becomes an impediment to the water from getting onto the skin as well. So you've got to remember to, properly cleanse face, ideally. Now, the second thing is, in the second wash, can you start in the middle? Yes, it's mustahab. So the second wash you can start anywhere because it's now recommended. The first wash was wajib and therefore you have to make sure you start at the top and you work your way down. Yes, the sides are recommended. It's not wajib, but it's good to do. Yes, and for the brothers when they have beard, they have a beard. If their beard is quite into, as it is like for me, make sure that you run the water through it as well, as much as you possibly can. Okay. There are a number of situations here. I'm just debating whether I should quickly. I'll answer them again. They are all available on 1 minute clips, but I'm bringing everything together here. And that is, brothers, no, just joking, sisters, fake eyelashes. Okay, so that is a problem because those are impediments to the water from getting onto the skin. And because they're glued, and usually I get a lot of ladies coming and saying, no, you don't understand how they're put. And I'm like, okay. That's not, as far as my understanding from the fuqaha and ulama, it's basically an addition to the eyes and eyelids, and therefore it's attached to that using some kind of glue. Am I not right? You're not really telling me, but that's fine. Okay, so these just bear in mind with that, obviously, any other foundations, whatever. What about cream? Cream, not you. Cream, are we able to apply cream and then do wudu? Sorry? Oily best cream? No, usually creams get absorbed very quickly, so there is no problem there, except if it's a very thick cream, like pseudo cream. You know pseudo cream? Brothers have no idea. It's used for babies and stuff like that. Pseudo cream is very, very thick, and it's used for chafing and stuff like that. That usually has a thick layer on the skin, and therefore it doesn't allow the absorption of the water onto the skin. So it becomes a problem. Okay. As far as yes. What's that? Yeah. So we're coming to the arms at the moment, but you've asked it, so we'll answer that. So if you have a plaster, or if you have an injury, if you have a wound, this is what's known as the wudu of Jabira, yeah? So wudu of Jabira. Now wudu of Jabira means that something is covered, okay? So if, for example, you can cover it, you can go through it, tap it even with the water. If you have an injury or a wound, that's fine. If you can't, then put a piece of cloth, like a towel or a small piece of cloth on it, and make the water run over it. If you can't and water is harmful to the skin, then you will have to do tayammum. Yes? If there is a patch, or for example, a plaster or a bandage or whatever, then if you are able to, if you have a cast, for example, then run the water over it. If you can't, then that's fine. Then you have to do tayammum. Question: are you able to do wudu that is irtimasi, immersive? One sister bravely said yes. Brothers, do you know what I'm talking about? Wudu I'm talking about. Yes. Irtimasi wudu is an actual fiqhi term. What does this mean? It means you put your face under the water. And then obviously you put your hands under the water. The areas where it needs to be washed, not wiped, because as we know, you can't take water for the head or the feet. Can you do that? As you can see from the discussion this evening, there's a lot of perhaps misunderstanding, or some people saying yes, some people saying no. Hence, inshallah, this is beneficial for all of us to understand. There is no problem in doing so, provided the water flows from top to the bottom. No problem. If you can make sure that the tap, when you're putting your face and it runs, or if you put your arms under the tap, it runs this way, then there's no issue. It's the same as taking water yourself and placing it on the arms. No problems at all. Yes? Now, any questions? Yes? No, there's no basic questions. Yes. My sister, we haven't yet finished wudu. It's right, that toe is right at the end. So please bear with me, I'll come to that. About nail polish. I mean, I'll mention the nail polish now anyway. How many brothers have heard of inglot? Oh, subhanallah. Yes. Clearly, the stuff that we have to learn is interesting. So yes, there are today some breathable, water permeable, apparently, nail polish. Yes, there is. I was told by one of our ladies that comes with us in ziyarah, there is one called 786, and one Shia community is developing 110 or something. No, just joking. 786 apparently is a brand that is claiming to be water permeable. Now, nail polish generally cannot be used for wudu purposes because it doesn't allow the water to get onto the nails. However, there are conflicting reports regarding whether these are actually water permeable or not. So I've had people who have said you need to apply them several times, of people who have demonstrated on YouTube that they're not, and so on and so forth. So many of our fuqaha advise caution, and the idea is that it's very unless you are certain and you are convinced that it is water permeable, then that's something else. Regarding the feet, yes, because you are only obliged to wipe one finger length of the feet. So you can leave the rest of the toes with the nail polish, except one of them. No, hands are different. Hands, you have to make sure you cover the whole hands. You wash the whole hands. Feet are not the same as the hands. So you can't compare feet and hands. Yes? Oranges taste different to apples. So this is something that is good. I know for weddings and stuff like that, people often struggle, right? And they say, okay, so this is a blessing, alhamdulillah, at least for the idea of the, but remember, this is not for ghusl. This is just for wudu. You can keep one toe nail without nail polish on it, and you can use that to wipe the for the masah of the feet. Now, when it comes to mistakes that happen for what? For, we got 10 minutes for the actual arm. The common mistake that people do is like this, where they do this. Yes? And that's wrong. It needs to be, the hands need to be down. Yes? So the first wash, the water is flowing down. Yes? Water is flowing down, and they can turn like this. Okay? And making sure. Now, where should the beginning be? Just above the elbow, yes? So it's important that I demonstrate here. Is there a difference between ladies and gents? There's a lot of yes and no's together, a sound of which makes it unclear. There is istihbab, it's recommended for the ladies to have from inwards and for the brothers to start outwards. But it's not wajib. The wudu between brothers and sisters is the same as far as what's obligatory. Yes? Now, there are people who start right on the edge when it comes to the elbow. Don't do that. Start above. Yes? Start above and make your way down. If there are any impediments, whatever. Tattoos. Alhamdulillah, I don't have any. Allowed, not allowed for wudu? MashaAllah. Clearly everyone knows the answer. Obviously, because most of the tattoos are tattooed on the the level of the skin which is under this. So it's fine, the water, as long as it gets to the skin from wudu and ghusl, then it's okay. Now, a common mistake is people forget their rings or anything else that's there, so they don't cover underneath. So it's important that that's also done too. Now, nails, as far as fingernails and how long they are. If the nail is so long that it covers the tip of the finger, then underneath must be cleaned and indeed water must reach it. Is that clear? So that's something that we have to bear in mind when it comes to the washing of the arms as well. The entire arm has to be washed once. If we want to wash twice, that's not a problem. Third time is not permissible and it's haram. And remember, the third time means when you've completely covered washing the arms twice. Okay? Just a common error for the left arm, which we need to highlight, and that is, according to His Eminence Ayatollah Sistani, it based on obligatory precaution. Please understand this. You should not wash the left arm twice. It should be once. Why? Yes. So why he says you shouldn't? There's a reason. There's a very subtle reason. Those of us who've been with us in ziyarah. No, you're not there really. Anyone else wants to guess the reason? We don't have time, but I'll tell you the reason. The reason is, yes, you're nearly there, but the idea is, after we wash the left arm, we're not supposed to take any more water. So imagine you've put water for the left, you've washed it, that's one. But there is a task now, and that is to close the tap. The moment you close the tap, there is dampness on the tap. That touching of the dampness of the tap constitutes the beginning of the second wash. Yes? If we have that intention, right? So that's fine, there's not a problem there because you're just closing the tap. You're not intending to wash the second time. But if you do wash the second time, then you're going into territory where now it's the third time. Yes, and you're taking water which you shouldn't be taking. Hence, the logic behind that. I know people say, oh, come on, that's a bit pedantic, but there's no such thing in wudu. It's all discipline. It's all about following specific instructions and commands. Similarly, when it comes to now, obviously, the next steps must never be done with any source of water which is external. It has to be with the current water that an individual has, the wiping of the head. The head is divided into 4 parts. There's the right side, left side, the back, and then the front. It's only in the front, and it's mustahab for it to be done from the kind of middle all the way till where normally the hair stops. The wajib is 1 finger length. It's recommended to have 3 finger width, yes, and to wipe from there to... Now, does it have to be, you see, because what I have seen, especially with some ladies, I call it the wudu hair battle. Do you know what that is? The splitting of the hair and this idea where they have to do it on the scalp. Yes? Have you seen, brothers? Where have you been living? Yes. That's actually what sometimes people do, because they think that the wiping has to be on the scalp. It needs to be on the hair, that's it. No, it doesn't. You don't need to get to the scalp. You just wipe the hair. Now, hair gel. This time, brothers. Hair gel. Allowed, not allowed for wudu? Yes, it needs to be water soluble. Otherwise, it must not be used or washed off before wudu. Is that clear? Can I move my head whilst I am wiping? So for example, I'm talking to somebody. Yes, I'm saying yes, 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 I understand and whatever. And I'm wiping my head. Is that okay? Sisters? You sure? For the first time, everybody's right. So you should not move your head or feet deliberately when you're wiping them. Yes? So don't have a conversation. Can somebody talk or eat or walk whilst they're doing wudu? So you can talk but you can't eat. Because in Ramadan, what happens is people are stuffing themselves and having wudu at the same time. So, you know, that's the interesting thing. Brothers, what do you think? It's permissible. It's allowed. Yeah, it's no problem. Eating and drinking, walking, talking in wudu does not invalidate the wudu. It's makruh. So it's not recommended, not advisable. But it doesn't invalidate the wudu. There's not a problem there. Now, the wiping of the feet, I need to demonstrate because it's a common error. Wiping of the feet obviously can't be done with socks or shoes for that matter. But what is commonly a mistake is people doing this. I've seen them in my own eyes, people doing this. Yes? Because it needs to be stable. It needs to be on a place which is stationary. So you're either, if you're mashallah athletic, yeah, you can stretch on the ground, or you can have it on a particular stool or anything and put your feet on it, or you can sit in a chair and wipe your feet. As we said, 1 finger length is wajib, mustahab to go round and to go all the way till the ankle, but it's not necessarily wajib. The right with the right and the left with the left. Now, one mas'ala, 1 or 2, and then we end. The mas'ala is regarding the issue that happens in places, public bathrooms or whatever, whereby people are in a short, very cramped place. So now they're not allowed to take any water. So what they do is they wash their left, yes, then they come out, they go somewhere where they can sit, they take out their socks, yes, and before that they wipe their head, and then they wipe their feet. Is that okay? Yes? Sisters, you okay with that? Because most of us have done it, no? Especially ladies, because sometimes, you know, you're in the bathroom, you want to move because now you don't need the water, right? You've taken the water for the left, now you want to get out so you can give people space So you go to the mosque, you go somewhere, whatever, you sit, maybe have chai. Okay, and then wipe the feet. Ayatollah Stani says, based on obligatory precaution, this wudu is batil. Yes. Why? He says, because in wudu there has to be something known as muwalat. One must follow the other. Yeah, needs to be sequenced. He says, if based on urf, somebody looking at you, you have now divided wudu into several parts where now somebody looking at you saying you're not doing wudu. You're just walking somewhere. Yes? What is the solution? There's a solution there. Yeah, we've finished. What is the solution? There's a solution here. Give up? Ladies, any solution? No? No. If you want to later, get out of the bathroom and go somewhere and do the wiping. That's the solution. Solution is not to stop doing wudu. So you are walking and doing wudu. Yes, so you're doing this. Walking, and then this. By that time you have reached, and then you wipe your feet. So there isn't a break in the wudu. Yes? Is that clear? And if you, for example, also reached a place and you've run out of water, what do you do then? Yes. Yes, okay. And if you don't have any water, it's dried up? Yes. And if you haven't, it's dried up? It's fine. Who said that? So, just get on with it. Or as the uncle said, just relax and who cares? I love the answer. Just relax and who cares? It makes us redundant, basically. There's no jobs for us left. Okay, the answer is you start again. You start again. You've run out of water, you start again, right? You don't just say, okay, well, no water, so we might as well. Thank you very much. May Allah bless you. If there's any questions, come and see me afterwards. Inshallah, now we prepare for salah. Jazakumullah khair. Salawat.